everyone. Glad to have everybody back with us this evening. And to all our listeners and viewers, welcome to the Gridiron Icon podcast show as we huddle each week with dynamic personalities and iconic people, coaches, fans at every level of the game. We get to the questions not asked on the other platforms. So we're going to do that this evening, and I think you're going to really enjoy this guest. We take ourselves in a different journey. This week's iconic guest comes from another side of the NFL game set as the longtime equipment manager for the Rams, LA St. Louis. He's been there from, he's about that tall. I remember him about that tall, but he's been in the business, was in it for well over 40 years. He's been in the Super Bowls, has been a part of a couple of those, and has been one of the most recognized equipment managers throughout his career. He had stops at USC, Cerritos College, UC Berkeley, and now the XFL Football League. So I want to ask him a lot about that. He was a baseball player at UC Riverside, which I did not know, which we're finding out on this show. It's one of the favorite sports for people to grow up under until they go off in a different direction, unless it sticks. And is the son of Todd Hewitt, who served as a wonderful 32 years as a Rams equipment manager, whom I first met when I first came to the Rams from LA, and everyone, our legendary, iconic guest of the evening, Mr. Todd Hewitt.
All right.
Todd, welcome. So glad. Boy, we've been looking forward to this because I think I shared that, man, I need to find Todd. It might have been Reggie Doss. I don't know, maybe Ivory Sully. And so somebody told me, it might even been Sydney. Somebody shot me your number. I was so tickled to death. I told Stacy, we're going to have a great guest here. So glad you could join us. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great being here. It's great being on the show with you guys, and great seeing you, Preston. I mean, we go way, way back. I mean, not that far, but we do go back a ways.
Well, it feels like that. Let me tell you. Well, and talking about going back, ladies and gentlemen, I bring in at this time my partner, Stacy Bauman, my partner in crime, but good crime, and so glad to have him with us. Stacy's got a lot of stuff he wants to throw at you, but I'm going to kick this thing off for us. And we talked about going back. We do go way, way back. We were young pups. I like to think of myself as a young pup too. But take us back when sports became of interest for you as a young man. Were you always in tune with what your dad did? And if not, you had your own journey in athletics. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I was always in tune with what my dad did because I was always with him. My mom passed away when I was 2, so my dad kind of raised me on his own. And so when he was a high school football coach, I'd ride on the bus when I was 4 or 5 years old to the games. And then he got the job at USC, and he was at USC for about a year and a half. Then the Ram job opened, and he got that. You know, I mean, as a kid, I was, I think, 7 years old at the time when he got the Ram job. And, you know, I mean, I'm watching Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones, Roman Gabriel on TV. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I got the Ram job and you're going with me Sunday to the LA Coliseum, you know, to be a water boy on the bench. And one of my first jobs was to, and when the players left the locker room for pregame, my job was to go around and empty all the ashtrays. Because in those days, almost all the players smoked. It was just kind of a nervous habit. I mean, they would, you know, Jack Snow's pregame meal was like 4 Cokes and a pack of cigarettes. That was his pregame meal. That was one of my first jobs. You know, as a kid, as a 7-year-old, walking in and seeing this, it was just like, you know, I'm seeing my idols, you know, smoking cigarettes before they got to play a football game, and I was just like in shock. But it was, you know, that was one of my first jobs. Then being a water boy on the sidelines back in, you know, starting in like 1967. So.
Oh my gosh, you know what? You just bring back memories because my first NFL preseason game, I walk into the Coliseum locker room and there's these guys smoking and loud music and laughing. I said, these guys aren't ready to play football. And I forgot, this is the pros, baby.
This is the pros, yeah. It was the pros. They knew what they had to do and they got ready to play. And that was my first experience. And I was telling someone, if you did it today, you would honestly, it would be the medical staff would be going crazy. But my first year there was no Gatorade coolers or Gatorade buckets. It was a galvanized bucket that you went over and filled with ice, and you took the water from the Coliseum from the hose, but you had to let it run for about 90 seconds because the water came out brown from the old pipes in the Coliseum until it got to the point. And then you filled that up and you put a towel in there, and it had a ladle, and you put it like at the 35-yard line, and guys would come off, and one guy had put his hand, grab the towel out and suck on the towel because you weren't supposed to drink a lot of water in those days, of course. And another guy would come off and take the ladle and take a drink, put it back. Next guy would take the towel, wipe his face, put it back in there. Next guy would take it on, and the medical staff nowadays would be going crazy on that. But then they got smart. About the year later, they ended up getting little solo Dixie cups, and they dip their whole hand in and drink out of it. But then about every quarter, my dad come over, hey, you need to change that water because there's too much grass in the water now. And then
Oh my God.
out but that's how it was in those days. I mean, it was just one of those, I don't think they knew any better or what. And so that was my first experience being around the Rams, was doing that.
Oh my
That is
God,
true.
that's incredible.
That's really crazy.
I guess
Thank God I didn't know that.
COVID wouldn't have made it back then, I'm
COVID
guessing.
would not. Well, you know what? You talk to the old guys, like, and they said, yeah, we never had any problem with there because there was we had the immunities because we were we didn't have to worry about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh my
Boy,
God. that is
if we only did know, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, what's going on? Okay, so even before that, tell us about that. Now, did you have your own interest in sports before
I love
diving into
I
it?
love baseball. I played growing up. I played football, basketball, baseball, but I really liked baseball, and I was fortunate to get a athletic scholarship to go play baseball at University of California, Riverside. I played at Long Beach City College on a state championship team there, and then I had a chance to go play at UC Riverside, and I played there for 2 years, and had a great experience, and and kind of had my own little thing. But it worked out really good because I was able playing baseball. It was a spring sport, and so I was able to still do a lot of stuff in the fall, like doing the Ram games, going to high school and college, and then was able to still do that because all our games were in the spring. And it was great for my dad because he was able to come to most of the games in the spring because it was the off season, and so he'd drive to Arizona State, or he'd drive to San Luis Obispo, or he'd drive all over to watch me play. So it worked out. It really was a pretty good thing. But I really did. I love baseball. I love the game, and so everything about the game. So that was kind of what I did, in college.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That kept you nice and busy.
Yeah, it did. It did. Well, I never had a summer because I'd go right from games back to training camp, and like everybody said, what'd you do earlier? So I said my summer was playing baseball and working Rams training camp. That's what I did all summer for many years, for probably too many years.
And Todd, your father raised you alone. As a father who did that myself,
Mm-hmm.
that always hits different for me. How did he do that? I mean, and do you have brothers and sisters?
I have two. I have an older brother who's 12 years older than me, and sisters that are 10 years older. So,
Wow.
And they were almost out of the house by the time I came along. So yeah, my grandmother was with us for a while until I was about 8, and so, but he did it. And I mean, I went I said, when he was at SC, I went to the Rose Bowl with him, and it was kind of funny because he told me to stay on the field after the game, just stay out here because the locker room was really bad. So just stay on the field. And all of a sudden he's in the locker room, and he goes, and they turn the lights off on the at the Rose Bowl, and I'm sitting on the bench in the dark in the Rose Bowl with no one there. And my dad's like, "Oh yeah, where's Todd?" And he had, he came out and got me, kind of deal.
What a story.
What? I mean, some kids go to daycare, and Todd Hewitt's hanging out in the Rose Bowl in the
He's
dark.
hanging out in the Rose. Yeah.
What?
Well, hey, who doesn't want to get lost in the Rose Bowl, right?
So much history. Oh my
Well,
God.
you know what? You grew up in this thing, so you played sports. Obviously, you go to UC Riverside. Did you think you could have gone on and continued to play, or was
I probably could have played, but I mean, I knew I was. I mean, I could have probably played, some in the minors for a while or something like that. But at the time, the Rams had offered me, when I graduated, I was going to go to law school, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And
Wow.
the Rams offered me a chance. They said, "Hey, would you like to work this season?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I was like, "I'll work this season. Then right after the season, I'll go back to school." Well, one season became two, and two became
Yeah.
four, and four became eight, and and so I never. So that's just what I kind of just got funneled into this, and it was something I really enjoyed doing, anyways. And my grandfather told me one time, he goes, "Always do something that you enjoy doing, because it won't be like work." And to me, I mean, I've been doing this for forever, it seems like, but it doesn't seem like work to me. It seems like just it's almost like a hobby or something. So it's something I really enjoy doing, and so to me, it's never seemed like a day of work, to be honest with you.
Wow, that is truly outstanding, because a lot of people would love to have work like that, and certainly we've all had an opportunity to do that. Take us through the journey now. When I got to the Rams in '78, you were there, already engrossed with the whole concept, and I thought there was a third person in the equipment room area. Who was that third person working with? I know you and your dad. There was somebody else, but I can't recall who that is. I'm sure there's probably been several people.
We had an older gentleman, Warren, who worked with us.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's who I remember.
yeah,
Warren. Yeah.
Warren Ferris, and Warren was with us for many years, and even in fact, when the Rams moved to St. Louis, I asked Warren to go with me as my assistant. He's like, I'll go back, and he went back and experienced training camp the first year in St. Louis. But as soon as we got to the regular season, he went back to California, because he's like, "I'm from California, I don't want to leave California." And but yeah, Warren had been at a high school in Orange County, and I was able to find him and bring him on, and he was, he did a great job. He was just one of those guys who was always there, dependable, and always someone who you could always count on to be there and doing everything you needed to have done to get ready to play a game on Sunday.
What's the true role of a equipment manager? And I mean, it's such a vital job, but a lot of people, as a everyday fans, they have no
Well, that's
idea.
good. People always ask me, like, "You're an equipment manager, so what do you do all week long?" I said, "I just sit at my desk and put my feet on my desk and eat chocolates, and then when the game, I throw a couple footballs out there, and then we play the game." But I think you're one of your biggest things, and it's gotten even more now as time has gone on, with just protecting the player, trying to keep the player, trying to do everything possible to try to protect the player in any way possible. But at the same time, you're taking care of the needs of the players. Like I always tell people, the only thing I don't issue is heart and desire. The player has to bring that, but I'll issue everything else to them. And so it's just something, you're always and you always want to try to think ahead, and so you have stuff ready for the player if the player needs it. Like if we're going somewhere, I want to make sure I pack 7 sets of cleats if we're going to Green Bay or Cleveland or somewhere where the field's not in good shape, and you have that ready to go. So you're just trying to prepare, and so that I always say that if I do my job and give the players a chance to play the game, and they don't have to worry about anything, then I've done my job. And like I always say, my job is like a baseball umpire. If you never hear from me, then I've done my job. But if you hear about me, then there's something wrong probably, and that be brought up. What you probably do too is, like when I was at SC, especially, the scouts would come and see me because they said, we want to come talk to you because you're with them more than the coaches. And the fact is, you see them in how they really are. And a lot of the older scouts would say, "Well, we're coming to talk to you because we want to hear about the Eddie Haskell syndrome." So they wanted to see how, because they're always going to be there on the best behavior around the coaches, but you're going to see them in their natural environment when you're in the locker room and stuff like that. And so and I think one of the things is just trying to being friends to the players and almost like a psychologist talking to them if they have problems and things like that. So you really become, you get a good rapport hopefully with the players, and they can trust you, and they tell you things that they wouldn't tell other people in the organization, and you may know some things that you're not going to tell anybody else because you see things in the locker room that you just like the old saying, what you see here stays here, and that's kind of how it is with the equipment manager. So I think that's one of the things that I really pride myself on, is that try to treat everybody the same. I try to treat, even if you're a superstar or the 54th player on a roster, you try to treat them all the same and just take care of everybody the same.
That's outstanding.
Wow.
I tell you what, it is a special position within the confines of the players, because it's a vital position. You know, you have to work. The players got to work together with Todd. Todd's got to work with them, and everybody's got to be on the same page. And you probably got some independent needs that need to be paid attention to with each player. I don't know, maybe, you know, in some kind of their attire or lining. But I was preparing for this, and I shared it with Stacy, and I went and pulled something out. You know, I got a bunch of little goodies around here. You remember this article? Yeah. Oh, I got some stuff, baby. And there's you and Papa.
Yeah.
And it was a feature that they did on you guys. The question I have for our listeners to hear and viewers is, how many, or is there any other father-son duos that have worked in maybe, I know in coaching there has, but anything outside of coaching?
No, there's two other families that have been that way in the National Football League. The Romanskys with the Oakland and Las Vegas team. Dick Romansky started. He was a childhood friend of Al Davis, and Al made him the equipment manager. Now his son is now the equipment manager of the Raiders, and then also the Hamptons with the New York Jets. Bill Hampton was the father, and then there was also he had more than one. He had Clay, and he had a couple other sons, and one of his sons now is at Maryland, and another one's at the Jets. So yeah, there is a couple other ones around.
Wow. Very interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, you see all these family units in football, the brothers, you know, the Watt brothers, and the, all these guys. There's something that has always sat with me, Todd, and I'll bet you have more insight into this than any head coach or anybody else. Do you have any thoughts, or can you share with us how superstitious are players? And I mean specific to equipment or literally anything. Oh, yeah.
Some are very superstitious. They do the same thing week in and week out. I mean, we had Fred Dreyer when he played with the Rams. Fred wore the same cleats for 3 years.
What?
The same cleats. He wouldn't change them, and they were rolled over and things like that. And finally, we played in the Super Bowl in '79, and his shoes were just. They were trashed by that after that year, and it was crowded and everything was crazy. So we get back finally, and I'm packing bags, and I said, I'm throwing these things away. He's going to have to break a new pair next year. And I was going to say, after the Super Bowl, I don't know what happened to him, Fred. They were lost or whatever. And I mean, it was like, and I thought I had killed his puppy or something when he came and goes, where's my shoes? They were, I mean, then I finally had to confess to him after a while. I go, Fred, they were so bad. You're going to hurt your feet. I just had to get rid of them because I knew if I didn't get rid of them, you'd never break in a new pair. And but yeah, there's always, some guys like to make sure there's a new quarterback towel in their locker, or some guys want brand new game socks each week. And then some guys want, 2 pieces of juicy fruit gum, and that's all, they can't have anything besides that. And it's amazing, or like, a player like, hey, I that same shirt, it's got a rip it. I know I've been wearing it since my rookie year. I can't get a new one. It's my lucky shirt. And okay. And so just numerous things like that, or, like that, have to hear the same song before they leave the locker room, before going to the field. London Fletcher always had to hear Phil Collins in the air tonight. He had to hear that as he went out to the field. If he didn't in that, I mean, he may not have, I don't know, but every game, that's what he had to hear as he went out the door to the field for the game. So yeah, there's just a lot of numerous things that the guys have to have a certain way, or certain things, or some guys didn't like pregame meal, but they wanted to make sure they had they wanted a hot dog at 10 o'clock in the morning, or it's some of the things are very, very strange, but like I always say, if that's what it takes for them to feel like they're 100% right to go play, then we'll do whatever we can to make them feel that way, so that when they go out to play, they're ready to go, or they think they're at the maximum of their game, getting ready to go.
So
Shades of Wendell Tyler.
I think we got some
Oh, you
stories
remember that
here.
on the sideline? Oh my God.
Number 26, Tyler.
26, yeah, he liked to have a hot dog on the sideline
Yeah, during the game until
He
throws up.
so he could throw up. And yeah.
That is insane. I mean, this is so interesting because, I've watched you for years on the sideline going, who is that guy? Now I get to meet you. I mean, you don't go to equipment manager school or where you learn this kind of nuance, right? I mean, you're kind of a part-time psychologist with the players. Like
a little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
And sometimes with coaches too. So, when Mike Mars was a head coach in St. Louis, he'd come in and go, yeah, we didn't practice good today. What do you think it is? I said, we're fine, Mike. It's Wednesday. They're tired. Maybe you throw them a bone tomorrow. Take the pads off tomorrow and put them in shells. And he thinks so. Yeah, do that.
I like it. I like
the
it.
players would come out after he'd leave and go upstairs. They go, oh, he was in seeing the psychologist. It kind of goes with the territory, I think. But yeah, you have to be a little bit of, you have to, you kind of, and like I tell people, the one thing I love about my job is there's no 2 days the same. I don't go sit at a desk from 8 to 5 every day is different. There's something new or something funny happens or something happens all the time. It's just one of those things.
It's one of the things that I there's 3 things that I regret that I didn't follow up on. And one of those 3 things was I would be a zillionaire right now if I took a recorder to the locker room each and every day. The best jokes were told, and the best original design jokes were told. It was hilarious at times. And that's one of the things that I recall I wish I'd have captured. You got anything like that? Anything that's left in the game? I know you say that, it's just a job. It's work. It's something you just love doing. But just like the players, they got to get pumped up. They got excited. I know that juice was flowing when game time came. Anything like that you look back and go, man, I wish I'd have done more of that or done some of this?
Well, I think the one thing I really regret is I think during the Super Bowl week, I was so consumed all 3 times we went, or especially the first 2 times. But the third time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and enjoy it. But you still don't. But I really wish that I would have just enjoyed the moment more than just like another, because it's not another game. And I think that was the one thing that I probably regret more than anything is the fact is that, I was more consumed with, well, I got to get this done. And I would have got it done anyways, but just to, take a second, and intake everything that is happening that week of the Super Bowl week. And, because the only thing they haven't done yet in the Super Bowl to make it bigger is put the blimp inside the dome and have to fly away.
It's coming.
But yeah, everything else, it's just, when we were in the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Coach Vermeil's our head coach, and coach, coach is always like, the harder we work, the better we're going to get, and things like that. Well, we had to move to the dome on Thursday because of an ice storm in Atlanta, and they just don't know how to drive, and they don't have the equipment and things like that. So Friday they say, okay, we usually practice on Friday from 11:15 to 1, things like that. Well, we only could practice from, because they had entertainers in there practicing for the halftime show and pregame. They said you can practice from 2:30 to 4 o'clock, but you have to be off the field by 4 because Faith Hill has to start practicing her national anthem at 4 o'clock. And so we're going long, and we're right at 4 o'clock. And so coach goes, hey, and the NFL people come and go, hey, you got to tell Coach Gutfield. I said, okay, I'll go tell him. And so I go over, and he goes, well, we got to have 5 more minutes. We got to get these last 5 or 6 plays. I said, okay, let me go over. So I had the fortune to go over and talk to Faith Hill, which wasn't too bad.
That's not terrible.
I said, oh, call me Faith. I said, well, I'm Todd Hewitt, equipment manager. And is there any chance we could, have 5 more minutes to coach has some plays he needs to get done before we get done? She goes, oh yeah. She goes, it's a start. It's the national anthem. I can knock this out. I said, I don't even need to practice, And I said, okay, just take as long as you want. So I said, okay. So I ended up sitting there talking to her for like 10 minutes while we practiced.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. So it's one of the really bad things that happened in my career. And I did come home to my wife. I said, if I ever had one that I'd want, I said that's one right there. She was and she was
That's your hall pass.
and she was one of the nicest people I've ever met. She really was. She was unbelievably nice. So.
Wow.
God, that is so fun. That Super Bowl, of course, again, is all over this wall. Unbelievable. Coach Martz, Coach Vermeil. Tell us about that dynamic. I mean, we had to make, as fans, we were all, and you've had the opportunity to work for both gentlemen. Coach Vermeil, of course, was known for his emotions and really loving the players. Coach Martz was a little more mercurial, at least what we heard out here in fandom. What was that like for you as an equipment manager? And was there different demands from coaches on you?
Coach Vermeil was unbelievable to work for. One of the night. I mean, great guy. I mean, he brought people in to do their job, and that's what he expected you to do your job. And like he told me, he goes, whatever you put in my locker, I'll wear. I mean, I'm here to coach football. I'm not here to be a fashion statement. But Coach was one of those guys that, like, Thanksgiving one year, he and my kids were playing hockey at the time, and my wife was going to go to Chicago over Thanksgiving. So and you always practice on Thanksgiving in the morning. You usually get out of there between 12 and always I mean, I worked every Thanksgiving, so I mean that's what is just, to me, it's like getting up in the morning going to work on Thanksgiving. But so Coach came down and goes, all your guys have a place to go today, and I go, yeah, Coach, I think everybody does. He goes, if they don't, they're invited to my house. And I said, well, I appreciate that. And he goes, what are you doing? I said, well, my wife's gone with the kids because they're in Chicago, so I'm just going to let my guys leave and I'll get out of here. And he goes, no. He goes, if you're not at my house by 12:30, you're fired. I'm like, okay. So I get to his house at 12:30, and he's like, oh, some of the other coaches are coming over. They're going to not be here till 1:30, but come on in. Let's, I want you to try one of my wines, and let's sit down and watch the Lions and who's ever playing. And so we're just sitting there, just the two of us sitting there, just having a glass of wine before everybody else arrives. And but that's just the kind of guy he is. He's just one of the, he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and just he'll tell you, he goes, when was the last time you gave a guy a hug and tell him you love him? And that's what he did. He'd come up and give you a hug and go, hey, I love you. And I mean, one of the greatest stories, he one year is the Staples Coach of the Month for winning games or something. So Staples gives $5,000 that he can use to whatever he wants to, and then $5,000 he can use for give to like a local high school. So he comes down one day and he says, who's in the equipment room working for you? So I give him, this guy. It's like, okay, great. The next day he comes down, he hands an envelope to me, to my assistant, to everybody, and he took care of the trainers. And so you open up, and here was like, I had $500, $100. I could not be the Staple Coach of the Month without the support of guys like you. Thank you, Coach.
Oh, how cool!
And that's the way he was. That's the kind of guy he was. He always cared. I mean, you were such everybody was part of the team, and he just believed that everybody's doing the same thing. You're gonna be successful, and he was a great guy to work for. Now, Coach Martz. I had Mike he came to work when Chuck Knox was the coach in LA, and he was introduced to me. Chuck told me, he goes, this is Mike Martz. He's coming from ASU. We're not paying him a dime because ASU is still paying him. So if you need the toilet scrubbed or the broom closet washed out, Mike can do it for you. Wow. And Mike came back and told me a couple years later, he's like, you know what? The way Chuck introduced me to you and the way you treated me like I was the head coach from day one. And so Mike and I had a great relationship in that aspect because of just the way, and we still have I saw him last Sunday. We played in St. Louis, and they had me before the game, and he came over, we talked, gave a hug. I still talk to Mike probably. I talk to Coach Vermeil about once a month. I still talk to Mike probably a couple times a month.
That is phenomenal. By the way, I saw you on TV. I was watching the game. And I saw Coach Martz. I was like, look at that, giving out the game ball. That was super cool for St. Louis. Because he was mercurial, he had a love-hate thing. But what a brilliant guy. I mean, really fun to hear behind the scenes stuff.
Listen to when he used to call plays, it'd be like, he would go, because I had the headset so I could hear if there was a problem, like with the headsets or anything. So he'd be like, okay, we got 1st and 10, Kurt. Let's go 985 F post swing, and they're probably going to cover 2. So hit Isaac on the 5 route. That's how he called the play. I mean, it was just,
Wow.
it was just,
Really?
That
that's
is
it.
outstanding.
And he'd be like, okay, we haven't got Torrey the ball in a while, so let's go 747, Y sneak, Z, H choice, and Torrey's going to come open probably, and so hit Torrey on this play.
I love it.
That's
I
how he
love
called it. It was like playing Madden at home, I think, for him.
Yeah, he's playing a video game or something,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
what people said about him.
but when you
Brilliant.
have the people we had to the people
Oh.
Marshall and Isaac and Torrey and Ricky and Ozakeem. I mean, a lot of people probably could have called those offenses.
They
Wow,
were
that's
incredible.
Yeah.
Very special time for Rams fans. Do you mind me asking you something specific to equipment? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. What has been your evolution as an equipment manager, as a person watching, like you look at the helmets in the 70s, and sometimes I want to ask Preston, how are you still here, man? Like the helmet he wore getting hit by guys like Jack Tatum and stuff versus the helmets you guys are dealing with today.
Oh, yeah. It's gone. It's phenomenal. Everything. It was kind of funny. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job in the evolution of how helmets are, going from the old 12-point suspension helmet to the pack, which I think probably the pack or the bike helmet, which Preston wore, to now with precision fit helmets. And I mean, you scan the guy, you scan the player's head, and the helmet's made exactly to fit him, fit the player precisely. So
Wow.
so it's really come a long ways. And and the problem is everybody thought that air was like like something to protect. Well, air wasn't. Air was just more for comfort and get a little fit. I mean, if you were putting a lot of air in your helmet, the helmet probably wasn't fitting properly, to be honest with you. And so it's come a long ways. It really has. I mean, it's kind of funny. Today I was over at I'm down in Dallas right now for the XFL season, and they have a bunch of boxes from the 2001 season, the original season. And it's just like some of the uniforms were like, this big, and they're, open arms, and they had these helmets by Adams, and you looked at them like, oh my God, I wouldn't have given this to my worst enemy to wear, but that's what they were wearing then. And it just was, the times, and how things were. And but yeah, it's amazing how and we're doing such better job on like concussion protocols and trying to and it's about protecting the players more than anything like that.
Yeah, I always curious how somebody like yourself has had to evolve with because we don't get access to guys like you. We see everybody else on TV.
Well,
but
I think my dad made the best analogy that I always use. And he's like, the Model T was a great car in its day, but it was such a great car, we'd still be driving one today. And so and my dad always like, you always have to look to get better or evolve in what you're doing. I mean, like I remember back when dry fit material was first coming in, and some of the old equipment guys, well, no, it's got to be cotton. If you're not wearing, you got to have cotton on. If you're not wearing cotton, and it's just, and so I think you always have to evolve. If you're not evolving, I don't think you're getting better as a in your profession, or especially in this profession. You need to keep getting better with and looking at different things that are coming out, and all the new materials and foams and paddings and things they have. So I think you always have to look into that stuff.
Very, very interesting. We could do a whole show on that.
Yeah,
probably just the evolution of an equipment manager along with the game. I mean, it's just so many questions around that. I don't want to steal the show, Preston, so jump in and knock me out of the way, because it's fun to do this. But I tell you, so many questions that we could bounce off of you. The move from Los Angeles to St. Louis. Whoop, we got an alien flying in right there. We'll dub that out. The making a move from NFL cities and how that impacted you, going from playing outside to a dome at the Edward Jones Dome. Not even called that anymore, I don't think. And now playing in a dome back in St. Louis, watching you on Sundays. You're my team because of the Ram connection. That's just the truth. Plus Ricky Pearl. We'll get to that. How has that impacted your life? Has that been a big deal for your family?
I think, to be honest with you, we were very. I mean, my wife is a native Californian, and I was a native Californian, and so when we were first going to move to St. Louis, we're like, oh my goodness, we're going to this little, town in the Midwest and things like that. And we truly enjoyed it. We just loved it there. The people were fantastic. The fans are really supportive, and it was a great place to raise all four of our kids. It was a great place to raise them. So we really enjoyed it. When I first went back the first time, I left California on July 4th night. We took a red eye, met all the trucks coming into St. Louis, all 16 semis from LA. And so I was the first one there. And,
Wow.
But when I was leaving that first time, going back, we're moving to St. Louis, and it was really kind of a tough thing. But then my dad came back like 2 weeks later when we started training camp, and he brought all three of my boys. And so then my wife didn't move till the end of August when we got into our house. But so I had all three boys in training camp, and that was great just to have them. So it made a good transition going that route.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I mean, I can't understand, and I'm going to say it from the fandom side of this little show. I can't understand why you didn't want to make the drive with John Shaw and Georgia Frontiere, because they were wildly popular on their way out of Los Angeles back then.
John told me one time we were having lunch at Ram Park in Anaheim, and he sat there and he goes, "I can't believe it." And I go, "You can't believe what?" He goes, "I can't believe that we're moving to St. Louis." He goes, I put an offer out there, and I figured, Anaheim was going to counter, but he goes, what St. Louis gave, we had to accept it. And I go, well, I don't know what you're complaining about. You're not moving to St. Louis. I am. You're staying in LA. You're going to fly back every once in a while to see a game, but you're still going to stay, in Marina Del Rey.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Wildly unpopular from the bleachers, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I got to ask, the greatest show on turf. What made it special that you, as an insider and a guy that impacted that team at every game? Let's face it, you did. What was special?
I think what made it so special was the guys. It was just they really, everybody. I mean, it was just a great group of guys. You had some superstars, and you had some guys that were just total professionals at what they did. But it was just like everybody enjoyed being with each other. It was just a great group of guys that got along. They were just great people, and they cared about each other. I mean, when the year we go to the Super Bowl, Kurt takes over for Trent Green, and we're winning games, and so we get ready for the playoffs. Well, the book comes out. I think my oldest son is in 7th grade at the time, and so a book comes out, the Kurt Warner story. It's like a 75-page book, so he's going to read it for a book report. So I get home one night, my wife says, it'd be really good if instead of writing a report, if Travis could interview Kurt.
Ooh.
I said, okay, I'll ask him. So I asked Kurt, I go, Kurt, is there any chance that Travis can, interview you for your book? He goes, yeah, how about next Tuesday? We'll practice that day. We'll be done by 3. Just have him come right after practice. I'll come in the equipment room and interview him. I said, great.
Wow.
So the day's going on, and I'm out doing some locker, and our PR director comes in and goes, hey, Kurt, I got you on NFL Live, ESPN NFL Live at 3:00 today. You can go live and talk about the playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings. He goes, I can't do it. He goes, you can't do it? No, I already have a previous commitment. He goes, it's NFL Live. You're going to be on NFL. He goes, if they really want me, they can do it at 3:20. But at 3:00, I'm doing a video a book report for Travis Hewitt, and I have to do that. And that's just
cool.
but that's how those guys were. They would just But it was one of those things where they and I think what happened, we went to Macomb, Illinois, and up in the middle of nowhere, up in the cornfields, and being up there, it was just the team, the whole 6 weeks, and there was nothing else, So everybody got very close because you'd sit in the chow hall afterwards and talk and tell stories, or when they got meetings broke, you had nowhere to go. So at 10:00 they had snacks, and everybody go up there and eat snacks and just talk until bit curfew. And it was just a great group of guys when we won the Super Bowl and they were holding the Super Bowl trophy, Fred Miller, our offensive lineman, he's always, taking pictures. No, he goes, we can't take this picture out, Todd. We got to get Todd this picture. Todd's so important. And so, and I think everybody just really cared and loved each other, that it was just a group of guys that would do anything to help anybody else. And it was just the camaraderie on that team was unbelievable. It was just phenomenal. It really was.
Oh,
wow.
That's
that
such
is outstanding.
cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. I want to ask you, you're talking about the camaraderie and how the players usually have that. you probably have a great personality chart of so many different teams and the personality of teams. You could almost say, if I put these group of guys together, this could be a dominant group. Or if this guy would have played in his fourth year like he played in his, you know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you've seen all those
Oh yeah,
dynamics.
you've seen,
What special stories outside of, I mean, there's so many things that you've seen. How can you sort of put all those thoughts together and say, because you know how everybody says, he's the best at playing wide receiver, or these was the best at quarterback, or the best offensive lineman. But you've probably seen a ton of folks who could wear that moniker.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No question. No question. I think the '79 team is an example. I think that was a great team. It really was. We just, we came up short playing the Steelers when we really had them beat for 3 quarters. We really did.
Yep.
I mean, it was just one of those. I think if a couple different things happened, that could have been that was a great team too. And that was a great group of guys too. And I think that was kind of the same as when we won it in 2000. That group was kind of the same way. They cared about each other and they all got along and they all hung out together, and it was a great group too. So, but yeah, you could see where you see a guy and you're like, God, this guy has so much ability, and if he just would play like this guy over here, he could be, who knows how good he could be or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of funny, you kind of go through, but then again, I think it's how how you are in the locker room. We got a player one time traded for a player, and I called their equipment manager and I go, hey, how's this guy? He goes, oh, I'm just telling you. He goes, if him and I were on a desert island together, only the two of us, I never talked to him.
Wow.
And
I'm sure.
And then that player and I became really good friends in a very short period of time. And so I think it's how some of it is how you treat, there's even here in the XFL, there's guys like, man, you're unbelievable. You're so good. You're just one of the, you come in the locker room and you're so happy, you're always happy to see us. And he goes, I play place where the guy's just a jack,
Yeah.
and he just, the first word out of his mouth is no, and I go, well, I said, I want to treat you the same way I want to be treated, and so I think it has to, I think if you get everybody around working the same way, I think it makes a big difference in how the locker room is and things like that too.
We want to hear a little bit about the XFL, but I want to take this time, and as your journey went on, you've had some wonderful successes. Playoffs and Super Bowls, and just seeing great players and Hall of Famers come in and out. You could probably, and you probably have a great argument, because we do, about Rosie Greer not being in the Hall.
I would say that is one of the biggest probably mistakes around right now that Rosie's not in. I mean, you look at some of the players that have gotten in, and Rosie was just a dominant player.
He should be in NFL. He should be in. But
yeah.
I wanted to go and visit. Okay, you've had this wonderful career. It's going pretty good. You make that change to St. Louis. Things are looking good. The family's enjoying it. New dynamics. The boys are certainly enjoying it as well. And then all of a sudden, you get that beckoning to come to my office, and you experience what I experienced.
Well, that's what some of the players told me afterwards. They said, now you know how we feel. And I go,
now you know how we feel.
Yeah.
Tell everybody, because it's no different. What was it like going through that? Hearing that? I saw that our head coach, Steve Spagnuolo, that morning in the locker room. And so about 8:00, I get a phone call, and he's like, oh, you're in. We just saw me like an hour ago in the locker room. Something.
Oh, boy.
I need to have you come to my office. I'm like, okay. So I went up there, and he goes, your contract's up at the end of February, and we're going to go in a different direction. We're not going to retain you. And I'm like, okay, what'd I do wrong? He goes, nothing. He goes, you're probably the best equipment manager I've ever been associated with. And if you need a recommendation, I'll give you a fantastic recommendation. And I'm like, no, I think I'm okay. And he goes, the only thing I ask is, it's 9:00 and I want you out of the office. I want all your stuff out of here by noon today.
What?
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And he goes, I want you out by noon today. And
that's how they
I have
do
a
it.
security guard go down with you and make sure you don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. And I said, well, there's a lot of stuff down there that belongs to me because I've been here 34 years. And so I went down and called my wife, and I go, hey, I just got fired. And she goes, no. She goes, it's not April Fool's. What the hell? And I go, no, I just got fired. And so she got all the boys and herself, and I called our mover who was moving the team and told him, he's a good friend of mine. He goes, I'll send a pod and a couple of guys up right now. So they came up, and I cleared everything out by noon. I was out of there by a little after noon, handed my keys to him, and that was it. So.
I know you guys won't say this, so I will, because I'm a nobody. There were some really disappointing years as a Rams fan, and that time period was part of it. That's all I'll say.
Well, and I look back at it now, and my wife told me a while later, she goes, I've been with you for, we've been married for over 38 years now, but she said at the time, we weren't married 38 years then, but she goes, I always saw when you got up to go to work, you had a gleam in your eye and you couldn't wait to get to work. And she goes, that whole year, you looked like you were just dreading going to work. And I really was. It was that bad. And so, things happen for a reason. So it was just one of those unfortunate things, but things worked out good and moved on from there. So
tell us about your experience with the XFL. Is this your last hurrah? You're just riding it through? How's that going?
I got a call. After I left SC, I went to work just because I can't sit at home. I mean, I'm just not one of those guys to sit at home. So Cerritos College reached out to me, and they said, we have an opening, and it was 7 miles from the house. And I said, yeah, I'll come. I said, can you send me a resume? I go, sure, I'll send you a resume.
I'll send you one.
And he sent me like 5 months later, well, when can you come up and talk to us? And I'm like, I can come anytime you want. So I went up there, and they offered me a job. And so I went there, and then was there for like almost 2 years. And then I got a call from the XFL, and a guy I know, and he goes, hey, I really need you to come to work for the XFL. And I'm like, I don't know, and he's like, well, we're willing to pay you this. And I'm like, okay.
Okay. My attention.
I will be there. And he goes, and you'll start getting paid in August, but you won't have to be here. The season goes from, January to the end of April. And I'm like, okay. And so I took the job. I stayed on, and so I had to come down a couple times, because they had a mess of just stuff everywhere, and so just to get it organized for the season. But I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. The guys, these are guys that, they want to have a chance. Either a guy wants to still play the game, or he's trying to get back in, having a second chance, or to have a chance to get in the league. And so it's a great group of guys. They work hard, and they're great guys because they're all, you can't have any jerks just because if it's going to get out if you're such a clown. And so they're very, they're very, very. It's a great group of guys, and I've just had a lot of fun. It's been a really good time. It really has. I've enjoyed it immensely. It almost reminds me of football, like at the NFL back in maybe the 90s kind of deal.
Cool.
It's just kind of where it's still kind of a game, and it's not like such a big business as it got to in the NFL. And I think and you're staying in a hotel, and it's the same thing. You're eating 3 meals a day with the players. You're in the hotel with the players for 4 months, and it's just one of those things where it's so it's just a small, a really tightly knit group of guys. You have 51 players. That's all you have. You only go to camp with 75.
Wow.
And then you cut from 75 to 70. Then you go from 70 to 51. There's no practice squad, so you only practice with 51 guys every day.
Wow.
So the receivers are running offense, and they're running dummy offense, and so it's a little different in that. And I like some of the rules they have. I think they're kind of fun and exciting. I like the fact of the not kicking extra points, but you have to go for 1, 2, or 3, and the kickoff's kind of unique because the NFL now you okay, we're going to kick off. Well, you're going to start at the 25 because the ball's going out of the end zone every time. So I think they're this, and then the overtime I think is really a cool little thing they're doing where it's like kind of soccer where a penalty kick, and you got 3 tries, and if you score two and the other team scores three, they win. You get 2 points every time you score, and so there's some unique things about it, I think, and and it's been pretty decent football from
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's been very entertaining. So I've kind of it's been a lot of fun. It really has.
I've really enjoyed it, and St. Louis is my squad. And I was watching this last week, knowing that we were going to get to visit with you. Now, you would have been the equipment trainer for Coach Beck, right? When he was with the Rams.
Coach Beck, I worked for the Rams when Coach was there at the end of his career. So
yeah,
I was hired for the job before he got the job, and then he got the job, and then the nice thing is he's got Coach Beck's on the staff. We have Art Valero, who was a running back coach with Scott Linehan, and he's the running back coach. We have Ricky Prohl, the wide receiver coach. Will Glover is the defensive line coach who played. Chris Claiborne, who came
linebacker
late in his career as a linebacker coach. Donnie Abrams is our defense coordinator, and when we had our retreat back in November, Donnie's like, "You were the Rams?" I go, "Yeah, I was with the Rams when we beat you to go to the Super Bowl." He goes, "Yeah, I remember that." And I go, "Yeah, I do too."
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's a good group, and we only have 11 coaches, and so it's a tight knit group. You have an equipment manager, one video guy, a trainer, and then the 11 coaches. So it's a small staff, but it's a good staff. They've really done a good job.
I am a dyed in the I've got, I think every guy has their top 10, top 20. For me, it's the Rams, my top 10, 20. Ricky Prohl is one of my guys. And so seeing him on Sundays with his son on the team, and then you're associated with it, this feels like some kind of a family reunion.
It's really awesome. And in Austin, it's kind of funny. Austin's a great kid. Ricky used to bring Austin to the Ram locker room on Saturdays, kind of like on the short days at home, he'd bring him. And on those days, we'd be cleaning the helmets on Saturday morning, like in the locker room, and cleaning them and polishing them, getting ready. We'd change the decals already. So Austin would help us, and he was only like 4 or 5 at the time, or 5 or 6. And Austin, go get that helmet. He'd go over and get the helmet and bring it back. So he's been in the locker room his whole life too. But there's when I saw him for the first time, and one time the movie Toy Story just come out at Christmas time, and so he's in the locker room, and so everybody says they're like, "Austin, so what do you want? What do you want for Christmas?" He goes, "I want to get a Buzz and a Woody."
Oh no!
And all the players like,
we'd like
to get one too. We'd like to get one too. So when I saw him the first time when the players showed up, he walked in and goes, "Hey, can I get a Buzz and a Woody?"
No, did he really?
That's the first thing he told me. Yeah.
This is going to be all over Twitter. Warning.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Way to go, Austin Prohl. That is so awesome.
The stories from inside the shell. Well, Todd, you've had such a glorious, wonderful, outstanding career. I'm just so happy to have been a part of just a little bit of it, but just a celebrated career, the whole family. And you got 2 boys. I know time's running. We got to get to our 2-minute drill, but tell us real quick about your boys that's in the business of football.
Well, my one boy, Travis, he worked for me at USC, and he had an opportunity to go to Fresno State as the associate athletic director in charge of equipment. Wow. So he's up there. He runs football, but he also oversees the whole athletic department for equipment. Then my other son, Josh, Coach Tedford called me one day and goes, "I need an equipment manager," when he was at Fresno State originally. And so funny thing is all three of us have worked for Coach Tedford. That's the funny thing. So, but I said, "Well, call my son. He's at Central Arkansas," because he was going to school, and when he was in school, he was working for the Royals on the ground crew. I got him a job because he was going to school in Kansas City, and then he got done with school. And he goes, "Dad, I goes, there's a job at Central Arkansas. I want to get into equipment." I'm like, "You're an idiot," but he did it. And then Tedford called and goes, "I need equipment." I said, "Well, call my son. If you think I'm good." So he took him from Central, and he went to Fresno.
Wow.
And then when Coach Tedford left, he got an opportunity to go to UNLV. He went to UNLV for 2 years. But then the BYU job, and he hasn't ever asked for a job. They've always reached out to him, and now he's at BYU. So he's at BYU. And then my third son's the only smart one. He got into banking. So
and he
still lives in St. Louis, and my daughter is in California with us. So, but I have two. Yeah, the two boys they're both doing really good, and like they love it. And I mean, I guess they just like me, they've been around it their whole life. So it's just one of those things they like to, they're used to doing and enjoy doing. So yeah.
That is so cool. You're equipment royalty at this point.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And Jeff Tedford, if I'm not mistaken here, Henry Ellard's college quarterback. Yep. I mean, this is like all kinds of 8 degrees of Rams here. Yeah, really cool. Really cool.
All right, my friend, it's time for the 2-minute drill. Todd, if you're ready, I'm going to throw it to my partner, Stacy. Take it away.
I get the honors this week.
Yes,
okay. All right. Yes, all right. Here we go. Todd, this is all designed to just give us an insight into who you are, and we have a little fun with it. So here we go. 2-minute drill. Todd Hewitt, turf or grass?
Turf.
Whoa. Wait. Hold the horse. Equipment manager just said turf, Mr.
Because the only reason because the fact is when you play on grass, you have grass stains on anything.
Laundry.
It's more. I would say if I'm a player, I'm going to say grass, but as a equipment manager, it makes your life a lot easier doing turf.
Right, there you go. Smart man.
Nice asterisk there. Very interesting. Okay. We didn't even get to your days at USC and beyond, but college or the NFL or the XFL? We could throw it all in there.
They're all different. I enjoyed my time at USC, but I would have to say right now, I would say XFL just because I'm enjoying it so much.
Wow, very smart decision, which leads us to the next 2-minute drill question. I know where this is going. St. Louis or Los Angeles?
You know what? We raised our kids in St. Louis, and St. Louis is a great town. I'd have to say St. Louis.
Okay.
Great call. Shout out to those great fans in St. Louis, forever Rams fans. Favorite movie?
Field of Dreams.
Ooh, good choice.
Good one.
Very good choice. Baseball. Your most underrated player you've ever seen?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I've been. Man, goodness gracious, that's a really a hard one.
Wow.
You've seen a few.
Yeah, I have. I've seen. Goodness, that's a.
That would be a tough one.
I'm gonna have to skip that one. I couldn't.
Okay, that's okay because I've got a backup question here.
Okay.
I've got a backup question. Your greatest career achievement?
I think being named equipment manager of the year in the NFL.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Here's the off scripter. This is off script, but I'm going to throw it out at you, and you can just go yes or no. I think I know where this is going to go. Guys that were Rams that should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Rosie Greer.
Yes, Rosie Greer for sure.
Torrey Holt.
Yes.
Henry Ellard.
Yes.
And finally, a guy I love. You mentioned him, London Fletcher.
Yes, London Fletcher should too.
Landslide from the equipment manager. Yeah. That's 4 for 4, Rams fans.
Yeah,
I love it. And then finally, Mr. Todd Hewitt, who plays you in a movie of your life?
That's a good question.
If you say The Rock, you're going to be really popular with your current.
It wouldn't be The Rock, but
it would be The
Rock. That's a good. I don't know. That'd be a hard one. I think.
We should ask your wife. We should really have the wives on here.
You should have my wife on because she could give a much better answer than that than I can.
I got one for you, but I'm afraid to say.
Oh, no. Come on now.
Because he's more deserving of this one, but I'm just thinking more of physique, size, look. Ted Danson.
Oh, okay.
Not a bad choice, huh? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really good choice.
Well, maybe a little bit more
Todd.
dynamic.
Yeah, there you go, Todd Hewitt. Ted Danson. Ted Danson's white like me now.
Yeah.
He's got really white hair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, look at
Well,
Todd's
then that ain't gonna work.
Todd's got a beautiful coif going still. I'm just glad to have hair, but that's a
My,
whole other
my
story.
dad had a full head of hair when he
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
and he loved it too. So he really it was always perfect. His was always perfect. So
It was
Hey.
the 70s, man.
I got a quick Don Hewitt story. Walking in the
Please.
locker room, and he's hot about something. And when he's hot, everybody knows it, right?
Yeah.
And so I go in there, and I go to ask for something, and I need to have it. It's a routine. If you want this, you got to ask for it. I go in there and ask for it, and he just turns and just starts rolling just as loud as he wanted. It didn't matter who's in front of him. And I'm standing there, and he just letting it have it. And then he stops. He goes, "Preston, what can I do for you?" And he throws it at me, and he keeps on, turns around, and just keeps going. I just never, every time I think about him, I think about that one moment. But what a great guy, great family. Todd, thank you so much for joining us. Great
my
stories
pleasure.
and
My
insight.
pleasure. My
Really
pleasure. Had a
did
great
enjoy
time.
it.
Thanks, guys.
This has been absolutely amazing. And for those listening or watching, follow us, Gridiron Icon. You can see Todd and his glorious hair, as we just mentioned, still has it all, on our YouTube channel, or follow us on all the major podcast hosts, all the regular places. For myself and my much better half and partner in crime, the iconic Preston Denard, a huge thank you for Rams fans everywhere that have always wanted to spend a few minutes with our guest, Todd Hewitt. Thanks again, Todd.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.
And we'll see you all next week.